this could potentially, like you said, it could potentially lead to China softening its position a bit.
Zaka, can I just interrupt you there for a bit?
Yeah.
Because what we are seeing on our television screens, let me quickly point out to our viewers that these are the first pictures. These are still pictures that have come. We are yet to get visuals of the Prime Minister in Leh. But as you can see, this is a grab. This is a picture of the Prime Minister having reached Leh. The Prime Minister, this is a sudden and surprise visit really that the Prime Minister is undertaking to Ladakh, an area where we have seen tension because of what is happening at the LAC. Zaka, coming back to you, we were just showing our viewers that still picture that has come. We can see the Prime Minister sitting there and you know, the forces, it appears, are at the moment giving him some sort of briefing. Zaka, the Prime Minister will, you know, obviously he's much in the loop of what is happening. But today he will get a ground assessment, also be meeting the soldiers who were actually there on the 15th June night. I think that is quite significant because they'll be able to give him a first-hand account probably of what happened.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He will not just get a first-hand account, but also he will send out a signal to them as well as to everybody else who is there at the forefront right now, that the highest leadership in the country is standing by them. It doesn't matter, you know, how long it's going to take or how much resources this is going to cost or how painful the road ahead might be. But I think the signal that's being sent is that the political leadership is totally with the forces on this, and they are being given a full mandate to do whatever it takes to protect the territorial integrity and sovereignty of India. Just coming back to one of the points that I was making, whether this would make Beijing a little more amenable.
Yes.
I think the problem has been, Maha, that Beijing has been saying one thing, certainly in the co-commanders meeting, but the follow-up action on the ground has not been...
All right, Zaka, I'll have to interrupt you again. I'm sorry. Maria has some updates. Maria, go ahead. Maria, are you there with us? All right, let me go back to Zaka. Zaka, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Please go ahead. All right, so we'll get back Maria and Zaka, both of them getting us details from the ground as to what is happening at the moment in Leh. But let's quickly point out that the picture that you can see on your television screen at the moment is a picture of the Prime Minister who has arrived in Leh. Now, remember, Ladakh, at the moment, the LAC is tense. There are places on the LAC which are tense, from Galwan Valley to Hot Springs to Pangong Lake, and therefore the Prime Minister's visit to Ladakh under these circumstances is being seen as a very significant message that is being sent out, not just to China but also to our forces here in India, that the government, the people of the country stand with them. The Prime Minister is also expected to visit the Leh hospital, where he'll be meeting with the soldiers who were injured in the violent face-off on the 15th of June night. Maria Shakil is back with us. Maria, I believe you have some updates. Go ahead.
Yes, so the visuals that we are seeing on our television screens is of the Prime Minister being briefed by senior officers. To be specific, where is the Prime Minister right now? He is at one of the forward locations in Nimmo. He reached there early this morning, is what sources are saying. He is interacting with personnel of the Army, Air Force and ITBP. This Nimmo is located 11,000 feet, at 11,000 feet, and this is among the toughest terrains, surrounded by Zanskar range, is what we are being told. There are more details, in fact, coming in. We can see those images. This is a strong message, as we have been saying, politically as well, for the top political leader of the country, for the Prime Minister himself to go to the forward area, to send, to tell the soldiers that he's standing with them, even as they are looking at a long overhaul, is a message to the forge, morale booster, and also to China, that here is the political leadership of the country which is leading from the front. And that is, again, a very strong message. The fact that the Prime Minister's office and the entire defense establishment kept it under the wraps, completely secretive, because earlier we were told that it will be Raksha Mantri who will be traveling to Leh, and now the Prime Minister himself. I'm telling you the importance and the significance of this area. This is Nimmo, which is essentially located at 11,000 feet, and he is interacting with Army, Air Force and ITBP personnel is important here. And we can see on our television screens Prime Minister here briefed by several senior officers and other officers who are present. All the Jawans are present. They're all wearing masks. We can see it also. I have those visuals, so I'm also seeing that and we can see the mountain range and the visuals are clear. It shows essentially this, that we have seen that in the past. Here is the leadership which believes in leading from the front. Prime Minister again with this gesture sending a message not only to the forge but also to China.
All right, let me quickly go across for a perspective from Major General Sivach as well. Major General Sivach, can you take us through the importance of this location? Maria is pointing out that the Prime Minister is at a forward location in Nimmo.
See, the forward location Nimmo is about very close to Leh. It is not a forward area. It is basically a base only. Okay. And located in Ladakh itself. So therefore, what it is trying to convey is that Nimmo is more toward, Pakistan side. Okay. But what they are basically the visit of Prime Minister is conveying in a forward area. The complete Ladakh is a forward area, whether it is Leh, Nimmo, Darbuk or Karu. So all these are important areas. So what Prime Minister visit is sending a message is a very strong to China as well as Pakistan. To me, it looks like that Pakistan is to be equally addressed by telling that if it's trying to muster the strength in Gilgit-Baltistan, about 2 divisions he has mustered and given Skardu to China for operating their aircraft and thinking that it will be able to help China and there can be a two-front war. So it be. India is well prepared. So I'm sure the Prime Minister is also taking stock of the situation. But at the same time, it is sending a very strong message to China, to Pakistan, and also sending them that we are, prepared for a long haul. If we have to stay in winter, so it be. But we will not go down. We are no more a pushover. We will make sure that the Chinese go back to status quo, what was prevalent before May 2020. So that's a very strong message. At the same time, when the Prime Minister is meeting our own soldiers which were basically injured or participated in that operation which was on Galwan night of 15-16. Yes. It also sent a very good message. So overall, a very good message sent to everyone across that India means business. And we will not bow down. We will go to any extent and we are prepared for a two-front war and we will going to give a strong response to China in time to come.
I want to go back to Maria for a bit. Maria, these pictures that you've got us of the Prime Minister in Nimmo, take us through what your sources are telling you at the moment, what is happening there.
So at the moment, what sources say, you can see the Prime Minister, getting briefed by senior officers is what we are told. To be specific about this location, this is essentially the forward location in Nimmo. He reached there early this morning, is what sources say. This is located at 11,000 feet, and this is among the tough terrain surrounded by Zanskar range and on the banks of Indus. He is interacting with personnel of the Army, Air Force and ITBP. We can see that on our television screens. Yes. And this again is a strong message. How long will the Prime Minister be there? We'll have to wait and get a confirmation on that from the Prime Minister's office and also from the Army. But the Prime Minister reached there early this morning is what sources are saying. And remember, till yesterday, it was, yesterday Rajnath Singh's plan was cancelled. And we do not know when it will be rescheduled, what time will it be. And now the message coming from the Prime Minister himself with his arrival in Leh, a visit which was completely kept under the wraps, no mention at all from any of our sources at any point. I think it was to send a message not only to the forge, which would be certainly enthused with the fact that the Prime Minister himself has arrived with this kind of a message to the soldiers that he is there with them in this very hour of distress and crisis. At the same time, it is a message to China. Let's not forget that this is coming after a series of decisions that have been taken by the government of India, in which they have clearly sent a message that as far as market is concerned, that is also being used as a tool of diplomacy here.
Okay. Maria, let me also get Zaka Jacob into the discussion here. Zaka is joining us here in the studio. Zaka, two sets of pictures there. One of the Prime Minister sitting there and being briefed by senior officials. And another picture, which I think is even more significant, of the number of soldiers sitting there and, you know, today perhaps meeting and listening to the Prime Minister.
Yeah, I think the second picture seems more like an address by the Prime Minister to the troops there. Brahma Chalani is now joining us on the phone line. Brahma Chalani, the message by the Prime Minister, he's gone there. It's almost like American presidents, you know, dropping by and visiting troops in Afghanistan or Iraq, very stealthily, very secretively. None of us journalists had any clue about it. But tell us, what message does this send, A, to the troops, and more importantly, how may Beijing view this?
Are you asking me?
Yes, Mr. Chalani, to you.
I think this visit has taken the nation by surprise. This is in keeping with Modi's penchant for springing surprises on the nation. He did that only recently last week by banning 59 mobile apps of China.
Yeah.
But I think this visit of his to Ladakh is significant for two reasons. One, it's a very clear message to China that India is determined to resist and repulse the Chinese aggression. And two, the Prime Minister personally is seeking to boost the morale of Indian forces by going to the front lines, even if he's in Leh. Leh is on the front lines of the current battle to resist Chinese aggression. And I think that this dual message that the Prime Minister has delivered is a welcome message.
Would you venture to compare this to what U.S. presidents do, you know, dropping by their base camps in Afghanistan or Iraq, meeting combat troops, you know, sending out a message of solidarity to them? This is much from the same playbook.
Well, those U.S. military interventions are regime change wars that do not directly impact on America's security. But what India faces now is an aggression that seeks to change the line of actual control by grabbing Indian territories. So this is a direct threat to India's long-term security. And the Prime Minister's visit to Ladakh is significant also for another reason, because the Chinese aggression began sometime in late April.
Yep.
We in India discovered this aggression, the encroachments, in early May. So it's been more than 2 months since the aggression began. And even the Defense Minister of India has not been to Ladakh so far. I was expecting the Defense Minister to visit Ladakh, and I was surprised that he chose to spend 3 days in Moscow, but not go to the front lines in Ladakh. So the Prime Minister is making up for the fact that first in May we tried to downplay the Chinese aggression.
We
tried to convey the message that all is well along the Himalayas. And until 20 Indian soldiers were killed, the government line was everything is fine, everything's under control, there's nothing to worry.
All right, Mr. Chalani, we'll leave it at that. Thanks very much for joining us. Brahma Chalani there, veteran China expert, on what he makes of this move by the Prime Minister. On the left of your screen are the latest pictures. I think it seems like a picture of the Prime Minister walking along with the CDS on his right and one of the commanders on the ground on his left, just after he's got off the chopper there. The picture on the right seems to be like a setting of officers and Jawans there listening to the Prime Minister, speaking to them. There was also a third picture of the Prime Minister sitting and receiving an on-ground briefing about what exactly is happening. The question, though, is twofold. One, clearly, for the forces. This sends out a huge message of solidarity, that the Prime Minister, no less than the highest leadership in the country, is with them, and therefore they are well within their right to do whatever it takes to try and defend India's territorial integrity and sovereignty. And the second one is a message to Beijing. Make no mistake about this. Beijing will view this. They will view this with a great amount of suspicion, may I say, and who knows? Maybe they might even look at this as a possible signal that if escalation is in their mind, then this is perhaps one deterrent to not escalate, that India is ready for the long haul. If it takes months, if it goes through all the way to the winter, then India is ready for it. And mind you, Maha, I think that's the important thing. With the Chinese, you have to always understand, you look at the pattern of aggressive behavior that they've done on the East China Sea, the South China Sea, it's always episodic, it's always lasted a few weeks, and then tempers have frayed. None of it has gone. I think Doklam was perhaps the longest that they've been engaged with any other country in a standoff in recent times. And I think Doklam sort of made them reassess the way they engage, particularly the way they engage India. So I think this will exactly, pay into that feeling of not wanting to escalate any further.
Zaka, out of all the signals that India has sent out to China with regards to how India will, get back to them on the tensions on the LAC, this is the strongest signal, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. The political leadership going to the front lines sends out a whole new meaning altogether. So far, the highest level of communication that we've had is at the foreign minister level. The day after the clash happened on the 15th of June, we had Dr. S. Jaishankar speak to his Chinese counterpart. And then, of course, we've had the working mechanism at the diplomatic level. You had the co-commanders meeting for 3 times. But this elevates it to a completely whole new plane. It speaks directly to the powers that be in Beijing. If the head of government of India is going and sending out a message that he is standing by the troops, that he is giving them full authority to do whatever is necessary to protect India, then I think it speaks directly to Xi Jinping. It speaks to Xi Jinping, and the call now, and the ball really is in the court of the Chinese leadership. Do they want to escalate this further? Because the signal that's coming from the other side, from the Indian side, is we are ready for it, whatever the escalatory nature of that response be.
Let me go across to Maria Shakil. Maria, any more details that are coming in as to what the Prime Minister is expected to do after this briefing and then addressing the soldiers there?
Yes, those images that we are seeing are of Prime Minister addressing the soldiers. So we'll get visuals and perhaps audio also in some time about what the Prime Minister's message to the troops was. But again, Maha, I'm telling you, this is perhaps the biggest signal that the government of India can send. For the Prime Minister himself, in a very, very secretive manner, landing there in Ladakh late this morning. It happened in early hours of the morning, in going there, sending a message to China and also to the troops saying that he's standing with them. For the top political leadership of the country, so far we were told till yesterday, remember, only in the evening it was cancelled that Rajnath Singh will be travelling to Ladakh today, that is Friday. But because and then we were told that it will be, scheduled for a later date.
Yes.
Now the Prime Minister himself has arrived in Ladakh. We can see those visuals. So there are 3 sets of visuals that we are seeing on our television screens. One is of the Prime Minister being briefed by senior officers. The other one is of the Prime Minister arriving there. Next to him are CDS and Chief of Army Staff as well. And the other one is of the Prime Minister, addressing the soldiers. So what did he tell the soldiers? All those details we are expecting in some time to come to us. But the details, as we are seeing those images, the message is loud and clear from India that India has sent a message that it is China which has been the aggressor so far. Remember when the Prime Minister first talked about it, he did so in that interaction with the chief ministers. He had said it very clearly that he believes and that India has always believed in peace. But when it comes to its territorial integrity and sovereignty of the country, then India goes an extra mile in protecting it. And that we are not the aggressors, it is the Chinese who are the aggressors. And that was a message for the first time the Prime Minister had done that. And thereafter the message was that what will the government be doing? We had seen in military level talks happen at multiple repeatedly, thrice in fact. And what was agreed was that there will be disengagement, but post the disengagement, also the troop presence on both the sides are there. So, you know, as far as the presence of Indian soldiers, artillery on the along the LAC is concerned, that is very much there. So, three set of visuals, all sending very distinct messages that here is the Prime Minister getting first briefed by senior officers there. Then the second set of visuals are of the Prime Minister interacting with the troops, in which in fact he is, you know, telling them what he thinks, and the word that has come is that he's interacting with brave soldiers. And the third was essentially of the Prime Minister himself arriving in Leh. All this has happened this morning, so perhaps in the next few minutes we'll know as to what the Prime Minister has to do.
I think it's important to also point out that the man on the right is the CDS. He's the highest military leadership in the country. The man on the left is the Chief of Army Staff. He's the second highest in terms of the leadership of the military. So you have the political leadership, the head of government. You have the two heads of the military, the Chief of Defence Staff and the Chief of Army Staff on either side, flanking the Prime Minister on either side. I think it sends out a signal, like I said, to the troops that not just the political leadership, the military leadership is with them. And it sends out a signal to China as well. And also it speaks to the PLA. Make no mistake about this. Xi Jinping is the head of the Central Military Commission in China.